And my name is Carrie Bannon.
And we are both Junior Humanities Academy students.
It is our pleasure to welcome you to the first Academy Symposium. We would like to extend a special welcome to Mayor Troy Brumbelow, members from the Bowling and Rice Law Firm, and representatives from Oglethorpe University.
Forsyth Central High School is exceptional for many reasons, but one in particular is a unique academy structure. As rising 9th graders, students may apply for STEM, humanities, or film, helping students to feel immediately connected to their passions.
Tonight you will hear from senior STEM and humanities students as they present talks which support this year's theme, Focus on the Good. You will also have the amazing opportunity to see a featurette created by Central Film Academy. Each of these will showcase the brilliance of our young Academy students, and each of these will offer the exquisite chance to celebrate what these young leaders have accomplished.
But before you are regaled with all this wonder, we'd like to proudly introduce a very important figure in our community, a man whose own children, one a STEM graduate and another a current senior at FCHS, have enjoyed all that Central has to offer. Please give a warm welcome to our mayor, Mr. Troy Brumbelow.
Thanks for having me tonight. Central's been a big part of my whole family's life. My wife and I started dating in some of the halls that y'all roam in back in the late 80s, and I went here 10th and 11th grade. Back then it was junior high, then high school started in 10th grade. But I defected and went to South and graduated from there my senior year, but my heart's always been at Central. So my wife's graduated here. Our son Zach is getting his master's degree. He's did STEM here, and our daughter is a senior and going to be going to Georgia Tech. But it's such a great school. There's not, I can't say enough about how good the school is. I wanted to share something with you tonight. This actually was part of my commencement address when I graduated high school some 32 years ago. A boy found an eagle's egg and he put it in the nest of a chicken. The eagle hatched and thought he was a chicken. He grew up doing what chickens do. He looked around and saw the chickens spend their day cackling and complaining about life and one another. Therefore, the eagle learned to cackle and complain. It was a dreary life. Gradually, the eagle grew old and bitter. And one day, he and his chicken friend saw this beautiful bird soaring high in the sky above the mountains. "Oh, I wish I could fly like that," the eagle said. "What kind of bird is that?" The chicken answered, "That's the mighty eagle. But don't give it another thought, because you could never be like him." The eagle never gave it another thought, and he went on cackling and complaining about life and died thinking he was a chicken. Everyone here tonight was born an eagle. There's the voice of the eagle that lives within each of you. It's the voice of your dreams, your goals, and your creative imagination. There's also the voice of the chicken within each of us. When you hear yourself complaining, saying, "I can't, I'm not good enough, that's impossible," that's the voice of the chicken. Everyone has the power to choose which thoughts to listen to. Choosing to listen to negative thoughts that pull you down is like clipping the wings of your own potential. "Oh, I wish I could fly like that," complains the eagle in the fable. But he could if he simply would. Starting today, choose to listen to those positive thoughts that lift you up. Give yourself the gift of believing in possibilities inherent in your greatest hopes, your biggest ideas, and your wildest dreams. Listen to the eagle inside of you, and soon you'll find yourself soaring to new heights. I believe that the chicken's favorite word is impossible. No other word has popped more bubbles, buried more ideas, or smashed more dreams. The greatest opportunities in life usually begin with impossibilities. Welcome the impossible, not as some sort of a problem, but as the signal of a fantastic new opportunity. Henry Ford once said, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." If you go by other people's opinions or predictions, you'll just end up talking yourself out of something. Remember that all great advancements, such as the automobile, the airplane, and electric light, were developed by lone eagles that flew in the face of popular predictions that they wouldn't and they couldn't succeed. In closing, I'd like to leave you with one more thought. Chickens look at the skies as partly cloudy. Eagles look at that same sky and say it's partly sunny. And both statements are true. The good news is you have the power to choose which one's right for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Brumbelow, for your gracious words. We appreciate you coming here tonight and opening this extraordinary event.
Prior to presenting, each of tonight's speakers would like to honor a specific teacher, an educator who has not only served to provide knowledge, but guidance and mentorship.
We would now like to invite all 6 of tonight's speakers onto the stage. Teachers, when you hear your name called, please join your student on the stage.
Emily Elwood and Gia Shaw would both like to honor Miss Lori Carricoff.
Cameron Aguilar would like to honor Miss Christina Stevenson.
Heidi Lopez Rendell would like to honor Miss Brittany Pope Thomason.
Zachary Thurbush would like to honor Mr. Jonathan Henderson.
And Jack Ramu would like to honor Miss Antonia Parisi.
Please give these wonderful students and teachers another round of applause.
Hi, I'm Parker Ferrer, in STEM Academy, class of 2024.
And I'm Grace Leitner, class of 2023 in the STEM Academy.
So we're here to introduce Emily Elwood. Now, Emily is a senior in the STEM Academy at Forsyth Central High School. She is passionate about music and science and empowering women in STEM. Next fall, she'll be attending the Georgia Institute of Technology to study mechanical engineering and music technology. This summer, she will tour the country performing as conductor for the Blue Devils, a world-class drum corps.
Emily has been a member of the band at Central for 4 years. She has served as a drum major in the Flash of Crimson Marching Band for 2 years, and has also been involved in wind ensemble and indoor drumline. Outside of school, she serves as an audio engineer on the production crew at Brownsbridge Church, is a mentor for Youth Leadership Forsyth, and serves as president of Forsyth Central's Technology Student Association. Welcoming Emily Elwood.
Good evening. I certainly cannot promise to meet the expectations of everyone here or perfectly tell my story. I am simply in awe of how many people have invested in my life and encouraged me to pursue science and engineering. I have grown up in a home and a family where I'm constantly told that I can do anything I put my mind to. that I am competent and capable, and where there has never been the slightest suggestion that I avoid my passion based on my gender. I grew up wearing pretty dresses and using power tools. I had building blocks and Barbie dolls. My whole life has been a juxtaposition of femininity and creativity, gentleness and strength, frills and drills. I am incredibly passionate about STEM programs in our community and empowering girls and women in STEM. While I could take my time on stage to focus on the macroscopic problems inherent to STEM, I feel that I would risk my words rolling over your shoulders and wasting all of our time. Tonight, I would like to focus on the good. The good mentors I've had, the good programs I've been fortunate enough to be a part of, and the good that women bring to the table. I hope that by highlighting my own personal experiences, I can encourage you to invest and empower girls and women in STEM, both in our community and on a larger scale as well. Effectively empowering women in STEM begins before they are women. When parents remove limitations and expectations from young girls, they're free to explore and discover just how capable they are. Some of my earliest memories with my father take place in our workshop, building a car for my teddy bear, playing with wrenches while he fixed his truck, or helping build IKEA furniture. I was always far more interested in my Legos than my American Girl dolls. In fact, I broke quite a few toys trying to take them apart and figure out how they worked. My parents have always given me space to try hard things and a safe place to land when I fail. When girls can feel safe expressing their interest around their families, passion outside the home becomes natural. For me, this has always looked like a love for building things, taking them apart, and a sort of wide-eyed wonder and delight in discovering how the world works. My first memory of feeling empowered in an educational setting takes place in the teacher workroom of my elementary school. I've always been sort of a teacher's pet, and helping make copies or organize stationery provided me with some respite from the chaos of the classroom. I often took comfort in the presence of my teachers, so when they came to me, a curious about everything 7-year-old girl who always finished her classwork early and told me, "We need girls like you in our STEM programs. You're smart. You have what it takes." It provided me with a strength that I'm just now beginning to appreciate. This was the foundation for nearly a decade of intellectual pursuit and personal growth. And without it, I have no doubt that my life today would look very different. While I tested solar-powered toy cars, built bridges out of drinking straws, or raced robots around, I rarely stopped to look around me. Because I was consistently uplifted by strong men and women who reassured me of my own abilities, I didn't really care if boys were mean to me or thought about what I was doing. I was just focused on how much I love getting my hands dirty and actually doing science. Early exposure to extracurriculars is a key component of my own success in STEM. In 5th grade, I joined the robotics club. Myself and the only other girl on the team fondly referred to ourselves as girl power when we made it to world championships. We were fortunate enough to be mentored by strong, confident women with real-world technical experience and wisdom which they poured out to us. The good thing about getting girls plugged into STEM as early as possible is that it allows them to become confident in their own abilities before the horrible, terrible, very bad middle school years. The transition from elementary to middle school is incredibly difficult for most girls. They're part of an age group which is finely tuned to the world around them, and many of them get their first exposure to cell phones and social media at this time. Social norms and behaviors start shifting and solidifying, and these often include notions about women's place in the workforce and in STEM. Providing girls with continued opportunities to create, explore, and discover provides them with safety in the midst of insecurity. I spent nearly every morning for 3 years working on robots, starting with nothing but an abstract idea and finishing with a complex, intricate contraption. There was always a distinct feeling of peace that washed over me as I wired motors, raced a robot around, or finally got it to move in a straight line. I remember taking great pride in my own creativity and being surrounded by peers and mentors who made me feel safe. The lab was not just a place for me to process engineering design challenges, but also my own life challenges. Opportunities for leadership, extracurricular enrichment, high-tech equipment, and an understanding of industry standards are all key components of the STEM Academy here at Forsyth Central. Yes, I've been on committees, run clubs, built toy cars, and flown planes. Yes, I can start with an idea, model it in 3D CAD software, and then 3D print it. I know how to speak in professional settings. I can write a killer lab report. And if you break something, I can probably figure out how to fix it. But my time in this community has provided me with far more consequential lessons than knowing how to use a laser cutter or produce a strong resume. In these past 4 years, I've discovered far more about who I am, how my mind works, and who I want to become than I ever would have thought possible. As I've torn down convictions that insist that anything less than mastery is failure, I've been able to forgive my own faults. Grace, which I once found to be repugnant and illogical, is now a gift that I can provide to others. I found peace in the process as I discovered the beauty of learning by failing. My teachers push me to do hard things, and oftentimes I crash and burn, but I have an unshakable trust in them and their desire to see me succeed. I do not want us to remain fixated on the barriers that women in STEM face. Instead, I want us to focus on the good that they bring to the table. I believe that rather than striving for sameness and equality, the better option is to aim for equity. I don't want my uniqueness to be erased. I'm thankful to have been provided the resources, mentorship, and guidance that I've needed to become successful. But my experience has looked different from that of my male peers. This is a good thing. This academy is more than special classes and season of competition requirements. It's more than industry certifications and fancy equipment. I found teachers and friends here who have loved and supported me every step of the way. I cannot tell you the number of times I've gone into my teachers' classrooms to laugh, scream, rant, cry, chat, or any combination of those. I would not be standing here today without them. From building blocks and Barbie dolls to standing here in the spotlight tonight, I've always been passionate about learning and creating. I hope that by sharing my own good experiences, I've inspired you to invest in women in STEM. Support from my family, access to enriching extracurriculars, and nurturing mentors have been key components of my own journey. We have the resources in our community to provide all girls with these same things. Understand now that by focusing on works rather than the issue, we can enact more powerful change. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Nguyen. I'm a junior in the STEM Academy, class of 2023.
My name is Alina Pishak. I am a sophomore in the Humanities Academy, and I'm class of 2024. Whether it be a Sarah Dessen romance novel or a thick Stephen King book, you can always find Heidi Lopez Wrangle's nose stuck in a book. She plans to one day be a published author in both the fiction and poetry genres, along with writing at least one screenplay for the next big film. In the meantime, Heidi is part of the team creating the very first lit magazine made by the Humanities Academy.
Not to mention, was also an FCHS commencement speech finalist. She has additionally written several pieces that were published within the Forsyth County newspaper. Furthermore, Heidi also has heavy interest to leap into the world of fashion, ready to create designs to bring alive on the runway. Although her college and career path is currently undecided and still in the works, Heidi has ambitions to do it all.
And now introducing the esteemed Heidi Lopez Wrangle.
Thank you.
Gratitude. The sweet, sweet act of expressing gratitude. Dictionary.com links the word gratitude to grateful, which can then be defined as being deeply or warmly appreciative of kindness or benefits received. Now, what exactly does this entail? Although this is a set definition, gratitude isn't just being appreciative of kindness per se. It can be, but it can also be a multitude of things. This can include being appreciative of surviving the end of the week, or simply making it to the end of a school or work day. While expressing gratitude may come easy to some, it can take gradual work for others. There's not an issue in struggling with this, as it truly does take time and making connections and linking them to gratitude. I myself used to struggle with this, as I couldn't really comprehend how to make connections to begin with. But I also did not realize how many things there were to be grateful for in life, no matter how small it was. I decided to title the speech, "Oh, What a World." It comes from the title of a Casey Musgrave song from her album, Golden Hour. The song lyrics describe being absolute all of the world we live in, whether it be because of the various types of species of animals or plants, or because of the northern lights that can be found in the sky. Musgrave is an absolute all. Just like her, I am in constant awe of the world that we live in, whether it be from small things or big things. It overwhelmed me that a 4-minute track could be so comforting and aiding, although I finally learned to be grateful for this without even realizing it. When you're in a clouded or disoriented mental state, it can be difficult to grasp if there's any good aspect to living. Sometimes you find getting out of bed to be the hardest thing ever. Sometimes you find it difficult to keep going. So how could you possibly think of anything positive happening in the world, or think of any kindness in the air? While being grateful can be tied to constantly looking at the glass half full, which can be deemed as toxic positivity, gratitude isn't trying to hide the woes of life. The Canadian Mental Health Association defines toxic positivity as being positive at all costs. This mindset is linked to the belief that even when one is faced with hardship in life, they should always maintain a positive attitude in life. Expressing gratitude involves taking a moment out of the struggle and realizing that there are so many reasons to keep moving forward, to see the light at the end of the tunnel, to see yourself grow. It's not ignoring or pretending that the struggle isn't real, but instead embracing the journey and knowing that there's so much more to come, especially because of what helped you get to that exact point. Although expressing gratitude can be deemed to have a connection to promoting a healthier mindset, there have only been a few claims that this is actually true. A study done at the University of Miami in 2021 explores this topic. In this study, there were a total of 3 groups that partook in different activities. The first group was to write down anything they were grateful for from the given week. The second group was to write down anything that irritated them throughout the week. And the third and final group was to write down anything that had happened to them throughout the week, whether it be positive or negative. After the end of 10 weeks, it was found that the group that partook in expressing gratitude had felt more optimistic. Not only this, but they had felt more energized, more optimistic, and ready to go out and exercise and be productive overall. Although there are only a few other studies that explore this topic, it seems safe to say that while gratitude cannot for sure promote a healthier mindset or happier mindset, it for sure can cause a reflection to certain memories or certain aspects of life to help us remember what a world that we live in and how worth it is to be alive. I think my time in the Humanities Academy has truly solidified my skills in making connections, especially since it is half of what we do throughout our courses. We'll do the required reading already, but then we'll dig deeper into the themes. We'll dig deeper into other sources where these themes may appear, whether it be in other types of media or our very own lives. Not only have we linked actual content together, but we've also merged classes together. For example, in sophomore year, we were able to connect our journalism class with our AP World History class. Now, at first I worried over how this would even be remotely possible. However, deep down, I was more so worried over the fact that I have to get up in front of the class and yet again, present. However, our teachers found a way, and it was decided that we would all pair up, choose a leader from an empire or country, and then either defend or oppose said leader. We were able to dig deeper into the leaders that we had learned about, but also work on our presentation skills from journalism. In the end, we were able to successfully join these 2 classes together, and I also, in fact, did win, which made all the built-up anticipation and anxiety worth it. And even if I had not won, a surge of confidence boosted throughout me to oppose my leader in the best manner possible. This is a surge of confidence that continues to fluctuate. Although, look at me now, standing up here, giving a speech over a topic that I feel so passionate about. It almost seems too good to be true. However, you could definitely say that I'm grateful for this growth. Connections like this are fundamental to seeing gratitude within life. It is seeing 2 puzzle pieces that may not fit together on the surface, but looking closer and realizing that the bridges do in fact adhere. As I've mentioned, gratitude may seem simple, but many do struggle to find aspects in their life to connect them to gratitude. I had never realized that a Casey Musgraves album would mean so much to me, until I realized that the topics that this album talked about I could heavily relate to. From love, to despair, to gratitude, I connected to it all. The track "Oh What a World" is what I listen to in any given situation. Humanities even further helped encourage the significance of music to me, helping me make this profound connection. As different works can have a multitude of different meanings, this was demonstrated to us through music. This included analyzing a Nine Inch Nails song and comparing it to a Johnny Cash cover. Although each artist had their very own different interpretation, it was valid. This reminded me of my own interpretation of the Musgraves track. My tether to it and my interpretation of it was completely valid in my own way. And I know we all have our own version of this, a version that brings us comfort. We just have to spend some time thinking and truly reflecting, as is most likely right there in front of us. As for our music analysis in class, we got to go even further, a common theme in humanities, by watching Hamilton and analyzing some of the songs represented through that play. Not only were we able to learn the significant lives of those who helped build our fundamental government, but we've also discussed the lives of great writers, from Fitzgerald to Huxley. These are figures who help us think long and hard of who we are and who we want to be. Casey Musgraves is a figure that made me think long and hard of the beauty that life has to offer, especially since she really believes in the fact that there's all kinds of magic all around us. It's hard to believe. Thank God it's not too good to be true. Oh, what a world. I am grateful to be standing up here. I am grateful to be a part of the Humanities Academy. I am grateful to be alive, to be able to experience these opportunities. Now, I challenge you all to go home tonight and think of 3 things that you are grateful for, whether it be in general or an aspect from today, whether it be big or small. And hopefully you begin to realize, oh, what a world that we truly live in. Thank you.
It's a little short. Hi, my name is Jenna Groot, and I am in the STEM Academy. I am class of 2023.
Hello, I'm Isaac Martinez. I am a sophomore in the STEM Academy. Cameron Aguilar is a STEM senior in the engineering pathway.
Throughout her years at Central, she has been an involved member in the FCHS First Robotics Competition team as a business lead. Oh goodness, staring at yours isn't hurt. As the business lead at Team Auto 1746 and the Beta Club as co-service chair.
Cameron is a National Merit Scholarship finalist and a 2021 Governor's Honor Program semifinalist. Outside of school, Cameron plays the trumpet in the Atlanta Youth Wind Symphony and has consistently attended the GMEA All-State Band.
Cameron will be studying engineering at the Georgia Institute of Technology in the fall. We are pleased to introduce Cameron Aguilar.
What drives you to do what you do every day? Do you love what you do, or do you do it because you feel obligated to? Some of us may be motivated by the desire to make the world a better place, to live a good life. However, in order to sustainably work towards such a large goal, you have to be motivated for the right reasons, not just money or fame. I have found that being in the STEM Academy, I'm able to better prioritize my goals and have a better idea of what I want to work towards. We all have activities that we take part in because we find them to be interesting. For example, I participate in band at school, but on Mondays I also play for the Atlanta Youth Wind Symphony. I've been in this ensemble for 2 years now, which selects its members based on performance at an audition. Now, I'm not necessarily a fan of auditions, but I went through 2 of these over the past 2 years to be able to play for this ensemble. In other words, I was motivated enough to go through something as unpleasant as auditions for something that was very much voluntary, all because I enjoyed playing music. Intrinsic motivation has to do with engaging in an activity because you find it to be interesting, and the good in that activity is your own enjoyment. I've found playing in these ensembles, whether it's the Atlanta Youth Wind Symphony or All-State Band, to be fun experiences, which is why I choose to do them. But I'm not here to talk to you about music or trumpet or pianos, rather school. STEM was very much a voluntary experience, something that I had to apply for. What motivates students to go for these experiences, and what opportunities might they present? The types of motivation can be broken down into three main categories: intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation, and amotivation, the second on which I will be focusing. To make it more simple, let's talk about it in terms of the monkey in our brain that turns the gears and makes the decisions. The first kind of extrinsic motivation is called external regulation, or the reliance on punishments and prizes to drive willingness to do a task. The monkey gets a banana for turning the gears, therefore he does so. The monkey is only interested in the banana, and he sees turning gears as a means to achieve the external reward. So the only good thing that the monkey sees about it is the free fruit. I don't know if you've heard, but this symposium has a couple of dollars involved. All I'm saying is you could buy a lot of bananas with that money. The next type of extrinsic motivation is introjection, which is motivation that's more based on approval from both oneself and others. The monkey sees that other monkeys are turning gears, therefore he also feels obligated to turn gears so as to not disappoint the monkey community, because they're brutal. The approval is an internal desire, but obtained from external sources. I know my parents would be angry if I dropped out of school, so I don't. I'm not saying it's the only reason, but I'd be lying if I said it wasn't one. Identification deals with more autonomy. It comes as a result of recognizing the benefits of behavior in terms of a goal that you might have. There's a personal importance to your behavior. The monkey probably now wants to become buff to protect himself from the monkey community goons, so he starts turning gears for a workout which he knows will improve muscle strength. I know that I initially joined the first robotics competition team here at Central because I already knew of the benefits. My brother had been a member of Team Auto for 4 years by the time I had joined high school, so I had already gotten to experience his robotics competitions. The robotics team is a great way to apply the things that are learned in engineering class in a competitive yet fun environment. And I knew that joining Team Auto, I would not only be able to fulfill my STEM season of competition requirement, but also have the opportunity to gain real-world skills in both engineering and business. Now, I'm sorry to say that I'm not obsessed with robots, but I saw Team Auto as a means to develop the proper skills that give me the confidence that I'll be successful outside of high school and have the ability to make an impact if I applied myself. It's important for me to stress that extrinsic motivations aren't inherently bad. The different types of extrinsic motivation vary in the amount of autonomy and willingness of a person to complete a task or perform a certain behavior. I know school on its own doesn't necessarily sound too enticing, sitting down for 7 hours a day, learning new things, and then having to repeat those things learned over and over again. It's a very broad and simple generalization of school, yes, but it can be difficult for students to remain engaged if the only thing that's motivating them is graduation or their parents forcing them to be in attendance. These are external forces that are keeping students in school. What are some other external forces? What are my own external forces? I know I certainly don't sit in the media center every morning learning about eigenvalues and Jacobian determinants and hyperboloids of 1 sheets, or get this, 2 sheets, because it's the most exciting thing in my life right now. But I see the value in it, sometimes. For some of us, a lot of the math that we learn in our classes isn't actually going to be used when we enter the workforce. At higher, or commonly uttered phrase is, but we won't even use this in the real world. At higher math levels, the way I see it at least, is that it's less about memorizing every single thing that you've ever learned in a class, but having the ability and gaining the skills and strategies to approach high-level problems, both academic and real world. STEM, at its core, is not for pumping out engineers and doctors, but as cheesy as it sounds, creating problem solvers and critical thinkers. Instead of being frustrated at a lack of progress, we're encouraged to look at things from a different perspective and get help from our peers. We can all sit here and complain about our math and science classes, or we can look at them for what they're worth and acknowledge that they're useful and beneficial to our own development as students. The gears are going to get rusty if they aren't being used, so the monkey has to push through the bad days in order to turn bigger gears and actually make an impact in the future. You know the next one? Every day, I'm surrounded by people who have a lot of high expectations for themselves. We all ended up filling out the STEM application and had strong enough monkeys to last us almost 4 years. I can more easily internalize my goals of wanting to do well in school and aim high for college because other people around me share those goals. Internalization promotes autonomy, which promotes autonomy and also the idea of making decisions based on one's own interests to do good, which is ultimately the goal when it comes to learning. One big barrier to intrinsic motivation is the feeling of incompetence. I know that when I joined the robotics team, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know how to use any of the machinery or computer-aided design software because I hadn't yet taken an engineering class. I felt very useless compared to everybody else who was already on the team. However, instead of just quitting and giving up, I was driven by introjection and the guilt that would follow if I had just dropped out after 2 months of feeling like I didn't know anything. It can take time to realize that you like doing something and actually have the ability to do it, which means that external motivators and prizes could eventually lead you to the revelation that the thing you were working on in the first place was enjoyable, and that focusing on the good of the task rather than the prize at the end was easier than you thought. STEM students have a yearly required season of competition which they must fulfill in order to graduate as a STEM student. Would these students have the same level of participation in these groups if it wasn't required of them? Probably not. But as a result of being on these teams, could they potentially discover something that they enjoy doing and want to pursue outside of high school? Absolutely. We're always told as high schoolers, or we're always told as rising 9th graders to get plugged in at Central, and unfortunately, with a new environment, it can be daunting to get started with that. What starts as an external motivator, like a teacher encouraging a student directly to get involved in an activity, can lead to that student's growth of interest in a field that they wouldn't have explored otherwise. As independent as teenagers try to be, there's only so much that we can get by on in terms of our own experiences. Let's face it, we're children who haven't felt the full extent of the consequences of our actions. When it comes to school, students need to be pushed and need to be encouraged when it comes to learning. Being in the STEM program, we're encouraged and challenged to put in the effort and get a good result. I am driven by a connection and obligation to a team that builds a new robot every single year. Being in the STEM program, being in this academy, I'm exposed to forces that help me better internalize my daily actions and see them as less of a chore and more as a useful investment in my own future. It would be silly to think that the end goal when it comes to motivation is pure intrinsic motivation. You can't expect the monkey to love turning gears every single second of the day. Instead, the goal should be to give students the support they need so that they feel more competent in what they do. When students set realistic goals for themselves that they're able to accomplish, the satisfaction from achieving those goals and the subsequent experience earned allow them to go after bigger, more impactful projects in the future. All of this starts by encouraging students to pinpoint the roots of their own motivation. So, ask yourself, does your monkey want to do good? Do you want to impact the world? Thank you.
There will now be a...
will now be a brief 10-minute intermission.
Welcome back. I'm Gloria, and I'm a Humanities student, class of 2023.
And I'm Nguyen Porvin, also Humanities, class of 2024.
Jack Ramu has been in Humanities since the creation of the Academy, which was his sophomore year in 2019. The program has given him the opportunity to write for the school newspaper, the county newspaper, pursue his own fields of research, and become adept at maintaining a personal presence. Outside of school, Jack is pursuing a degree in music performance and will be touring Europe with Carnegie Hall's National Youth Orchestra as part of the trumpet section this summer.
He also plays with the Atlanta Youth Symphony and works with the Nashville Bass Instrument Drive Tunes for Kids as a promotional blog writer. In his free time, Jack enjoys listening to new music, hanging out with his dogs, and practicing his photography skills on his extremely photogenic friends.
We are now proud to introduce Jack Ramu.
I mean, I like the monkey, but that's not mine. Okay. Think about your least favorite person in the world. Now, imagine that person in middle school. I'm a firm believer that everyone's worst version of themselves occurs in middle school. It's a period of time in which you become conscious that you're a real human being who's supposed to have a personality, but you're not really sure what that means. So you take your most basic character traits and interests and base your entire sense of self around that. For me, it was edgy music. I took the same 4 songs by the same 3 early 2000s bands and decided that that was going to be my entire personality. But it could have been a lot worse. I knew kids who suddenly became bullies in middle school because they heard a parent or a sibling say terrible things about people, so they repeated it, and that was their entire personality. But now these kids I'm talking about are completely different, normal high schoolers, and they're all super embarrassed whenever someone brings up the stuff they used to say. Point is, nobody should be held accountable for the kind of person they were in middle school. That was such a developmental time, and we were all experiencing the feat of perception for the first time ever. To put it simply, people change, and I know now that A, it gets much better in after middle school, and B, I'm a much better, much less annoying person than I was then. But what about high school? Can't you say the same thing? We're out here experiencing freedom for the first time, and some people go crazy with it. People my age are using their newfound cars and their newfound freedom to break their bank accounts at Dunkin' every morning, or stay out until the crack of dawn while their parents wait up for them, worried. I myself got into a car accident less than a year after getting my license. Is this the kind of person I want to be remembered as? Do I want to spend the next 20 years of my life making up for the mistakes I made at 16 years old? And what about college? In just a few months, I'm going to be living completely alone across the country. I'm bound to screw up. I'm going to meet the wrong people, fail at things, make poor choices. I certainly don't want future employers meeting me while I'm in college. Come to think of it, I don't really want my entire sense of self to be based off of what I do in my early 20s. Or mid-30s. Late 40s? I know that my tastes, my views, the things that matter to me are all going to change as I grow up. Who I was 6 months ago is not representative of who I am now or who I'll be later. People change, and it's neither good nor bad. Sometimes it's monumental, and sometimes it's not. We just have to learn how to go with the flow and learn how to take things with a grain of salt. Why am I telling you, a crowd of parents, teachers, county representatives, all of this? This isn't groundbreaking information. It's actually pretty basic, and I'm aware of that. But I think that when people hear the words, people change, it goes in one ear and out the other, in the same way nobody really listens when someone asks, how are you, as a greeting. And this is especially true for adults, no offense. When I hear the phrase, people change, the first thing that pops into my mind are those stupid anti-bullying posters up around the school. It fits right in with other slogans like, if you see something, or say no to bullying. Kind of empty, kind of a brushed off part of our society. But when you really sit down and think about what it means to say people change, or any variant of that phrase, you start to realize how poignant it is in your own daily life. Something I learned about in my 11th grade humanities class with Mr. Thompson was the importance of semantic distinctions. We even had a hand signal for it. You can't discuss a topic, much less debate it, when the definition of it is unclear. So let's talk about the semantics of people change. What I'm not talking about is when a friend cuts you off out of the blue. I'm not talking about the normal relative who aged to be a crazy shut-in. I'm specifically talking about the concept of maturity through different phases, or brands, if you will. And the first brand of maturity is realizing that curse words aren't funny. It sounds like a joke, but I'm completely serious. Curse words are one of those things that have been forbidden for so long, so middle schoolers latch their identities onto it because they have access to it now. They go completely unhinged. The shock value they get by dropping the F-bomb in every sentence provides them with a new form of validation. So they replace all real forms of comedy with that. Maturing is realizing that there are more jokes than curse words. You can replace curse words with any kind of obsession, like edgy music, politics, My Little Pony, and you've described at least 6 students at Elwood Middle School. Maturing is realizing that you're allowed to be more than one thing. More than the funny kid that curses, more than the political machine, more than the kid who knows the name of every MLP ever created. And at the core of this is the discovery of personality. Real, well-rounded, authentic personality. And to get on a bit of a tangent here, I think that sometimes it's important to recognize that we lapse back into the phase of defining ourselves by one thing. This especially happens when we're insecure or unhappy in our own lives, and we don't even realize it. Sometimes when I have to fill out those forms and say, what are your interests, I can only think of one thing. That's when I realize that I've become too shut into myself. Think about that right now. Can you name 3 things off the top of your head that you're interested in? Is one of them work or school? Something I've been trying to do more of lately is to do new things that make me happy. Sometimes this can interfere with schoolwork, but as I told Dr. Aguilera recently, I'd rather get 10 leave points off on assignment than be living in misery. If I decide I want to take my dog on a walk, and if that means I don't finish annotating a chapter or solving a math problem, then so be it. Those things can wait, and all in all, it's easier to recover from missing those things than it is to recover from a culmination of poor mental health. But I digress. What are you going to do to improve your enjoyment of life? The second brand of maturity is self-awareness. Now, this phase has a bit of an unfortunate precursor that occurs right around the middle school mark, self-consciousness. Let's talk semantics again. When I say self-conscious, I mean active adjustments or hyperfixation on the fact that you're being perceived by the people around you in a negative way. People are judging you. I'm the judgiest person I know. In 7th grade, you start wondering if your pants look good, if people notice your pimples, if you have a lisp while you talk. This kind of thinking, although insecure, is a good sign that you're on your way to self-awareness. Now, self-awareness is more the realization that you're a real person interacting with other real people, and that your presence has effects on the world. Empathy takes experience. Compassion takes practice, and the two don't exist without each other. To be empathetic is to know what it feels like to experience a certain emotion, and compassion is the ability to recognize that emotion in others. For most neurotypical people, these are traits that develop naturally. It makes sense that it takes 13 or 14 years for us to develop a sort of emotional muscle memory, and the same amount of time or longer to learn what that looks like in other people. But still, just because we're capable of compassion and empathy doesn't mean that we practice them habitually. So, the third and final brand of maturity is effort. Exhausting, I know, but ultimately rewarding. Like I said before, self-awareness is the realization that you're a real person interacting with other real people and that your presence has effects on the world. What comes in handy is the ability to manipulate that presence. Let me give you an example. There's something in high school that we call soul suckers. These are the kids who sit in every classroom and complain about every single assignment they're given, no matter how small, despite the fact that they literally signed up to take a class. These people drag down the air of the whole room and they bounce off one another, resulting in the worst kind of classroom environment possible, the kind where nothing is getting done. And it's not just high school. I've been in working environments where coworkers just complain when they're annoyed or tired. What are you supposed to do to handle these people, especially when their negative presence is having an effect on you? Back to the basics. Be the bigger person. Nobody wants to hear it, I know, but in the same way we unpack the phrase, people change, let's unpack this. Being the bigger person is more than taking the moral high road. To me, it's reacting the opposite way of how a soul sucker wants you to react. These people, and everyone's a soul sucker at some point, don't want dissent. They just want validation in their feelings. So don't validate them. Annoy them out of their slumber. If your classmate is complaining about how much work they have to do, talk about how much you love the work, even if you don't. You'll definitely get them to shut up. In best case scenarios, they'll start to agree with you, and usually you'll start changing your own outlook for the better. Use your presence as a person who is aware of their emotions to get what you want. And to backtrack this, it requires self-awareness. It requires presentation. It requires effort. Perhaps not the most enticing thing, but honestly it's kind of fun, and it certainly beats the alternative of sitting in a complaint bubble. If your coworker is overly complaining about how tired they are to get anything done, then energize them, even if it's energy through annoyance. You'll energize yourself in the process. If your teacher or your boss or someone with power over you is trying to belittle you or your peers, don't add fuel to the fire. That's how you get fired. Act innocent, and ultimately you'll be more innocent than them at least. By not conforming to what a soul sucker wants to hear, you're popping their bubble, which in turn causes them to start becoming self-aware. It's a circle of awareness. I'm aware that you want a negative reaction out of me, so I'm going to force you to be aware of the words coming out of your mouth. Easier said than done, but when it works, it's fun. And these are all just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the functional uses of maturity. There are so many more brands and sub-brands when it comes to maturity. These three are just the most prominent ones that I've found in my life so far. And I'm sure that as I've been talking, you've been coming up with examples in your own life. At least, I hope you have been, since I'll be quizzing you on this later. The key question we always come back to in humanities is this: what defines the human experience? There is no concrete answer. Believe me, I've spent 3 years so far trying to figure it out. But the further we come along in humanities, the more frustrated our teachers get with us when we try to have class debates. We never get hung up on one side or the other, not because we're stupid or boring, but because we understand that there's no one human experience. While keeping that in mind, it's easy to qualify an argument or conclude a neutral stance. So part of this is the notion that people are different and that people change. The human experience is fluidity. The only thing we all have in common is the endowment of life. There are 7.7 billion human experiences, not just one. And the closest way that I've come to understanding this is by observing how people change. Not all people mature, but all people change. Change is what makes us relatable to one another. And every word I've said to you tonight has, in some way, changed you. And although change never stops, this speech has to eventually, so I'll end with this. I would assume the majority of the American public has read or is at least familiar with the plot of Fitzgerald's The Great Gatsby. Most people know the tragedy that is Jay Gatsby, a good-hearted man whose obsession with living in the past kills him. And when Nick Carraway, the narrator, says at the end, "So we beat on, boats against the current, borne back ceaselessly into the past," it's true. We're all constantly longing for the past, whether that's to relive it or try and change it. So don't be Gatsby. Don't let what happened in the past kill you. Learn from it and grow up. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jasmine White, and I am a junior in the STEM pathway.
Hello, my name is Vishnu. I'm also a junior in the STEM Academy. Gia Shah is currently a senior biotechnology student at the FCHS STEM Academy. She loves to express herself through art and fashion and holds a strong commitment towards community service.
Some of her favorite hobbies include painting, taekwondo, gardening, and yoga. Born in Illinois, Gia hopes to attend a university in the north and pursue a career in health and sociology. Please welcome Gia Shah to the stage.
Good evening. Before I start, I would just like to say that all the speeches tonight have been so wonderful, and I'm incredibly honored to be surrounded by such brilliant and talented peers. Okay. Okay, now I have a few questions for you all. In the past year, how many of you have generally felt like this? If so, you can raise your hands. I aspire to be like you all. Okay, now how many of you mostly found yourselves feeling like this? Skylar? Okay, and finally, how many of you always just find yourselves feeling like this? Me too. So I think we can all easily come to the conclusion that life is stressful, like very, very incredibly, extremely stressful. You all get the point. So I don't think it's surprising when I say that over 75% of Americans have said that they felt moderate to severe stress levels just in this past month. After all, regardless of whether one is young or old, rich or poor, we all experience stress in some way or another. So, speaking for a lot of people, I think I can say that stress is largely regarded as the #1 public enemy. Naturally, stress doesn't exactly have the best reputation. Even if it hasn't been convicted for tax evasion, like this man over here, it is still known to be a major contributing factor common to many of the leading causes of death in the United States. Now, all jokes aside, what if I told you that stress is not all bad? Now I know what you're all thinking. This girl just bashed on stress for 1 minute and 30 seconds straight, and now she's doing a full 180. Well, listen, I'm also surprised that I'm saying these words. Like, I'm literally someone that gets stressed about being stressed. But in order to understand why I'm putting forth this notion, we must go a little further back. So it all started when I began researching for my STEM capstone. During my junior year, our class was tasked with finding the topic for our year-long senior research project. But after reading scientific journal after scientific journal and brainstorming idea after idea, I still didn't have a plausible topic to base my research off of. Miraculously, however, I came across a very interesting study that shaped both the topic of my research and my speech today. But before I share this study with you all, there are a few things that we must discuss. Overall, there are two main forms of stress: toxic stress and hormetic stress. Toxic stress is a severe form of stress that harms biological processes. It is largely associated with drastic life events such as the loss of a job, the death of a loved one, or a serious injury. On the other hand, hormetic stress is a constructive form of stress that can actually be beneficial to the body. Examples include a roller coaster ride, a challenging work assignment, or even a scary movie. Now, I don't know about the scary movie part because the only thing that resulted from me watching it was that I avoided sewer drains for the next 6 months. I mean, how could you not? So, in this study, researchers at UC Berkeley exposed rats to briefly stressful events and subjected them to memory tests both 2 days and 2 weeks after the stress exposure, continually measuring brain cell growth. Overall, in this study, they saw that this brief exposure to stress had actually caused stem cells in the rats' brains to proliferate into nerve cells. And then within that 2-week lifespan, or time span, those nerve cells had actually matured into functioning neurons that were actively involved in improving the rat's mental performance 2 weeks later. Now, what does this even mean? Well, it means that exposure to controlled hormetic stress actually induces processes in the body that rebuild cells and strengthen the connections between neurons, which leaves the body and mind stronger and more able to face future stressors that would otherwise contribute to increased mortality risk. And since rats have genetic and biological behaviors that largely correspond with those of humans, the results of this study can actually be applied to the larger human population. To state this in the words of the lead researcher, I think the ultimate message is an optimistic one. Stress can be something that makes us better. It is just a question of how long, how much, and how we interpret or perceive it. Let's pause for a second. For most of my life, and I would assume the same for most people here, we've been doing our best to avoid stress as much as possible, right? Especially with so much negative media attention on stress, it's actually hard to see it through any other perspective in the first place. I mean, how many times have you heard the phrases, no stress or stress-free, and articles that promise to rid you of any and all stress you might encounter in your life? As a society, we largely fail to see stress as something that can possibly do good, and therefore we often miss out on opportunities to learn from our most stressful moments. And I think that this all happens because as people living in such a high-stress world, we don't want to add stress to an already stressful life. But along with the healthy habits that I mentioned earlier, one of the most beneficial ways to induce hormetic stress into the human lifestyle is to literally step outside of your comfort zone and actively challenge yourself as long as it is reasonable. By doing so, you are stressing your body and mind, but in a way that strengthens them and strengthens your stress response as a whole, which means that you are better prepared to face the toxic stress that is inevitable in everyone's lives. Now, I'm not saying that you should go out of your way to overly stress yourself to be ready for each and every problem that life may throw at you. Nor am I saying that we should view all stressors as a positive thing. After all, the same researcher I quoted earlier also stated that exposure to acute, intense stress can actually prove to be harmful to the body. What I'm trying to say here is that if we can all understand to recognize these different forms of stress and our responses to them, then we can all move towards learning how to understand how these stress responses can be embraced as a powerful tool to overcome the challenges that life is so well known for. Now, I know that to some of you, me saying to embrace your stress response kind of sounds like those obnoxious little Pinterest quotes that spread toxic positivity. But there is truth in the fact that the evolutionary goal of our stress response was not to harm us. Rather, it was designed to help us grow and overcome the challenges that we face. Now, the stress that we face today is far more complex than what our prehistoric ancestors might have faced in the past. After all, they likely never encountered the absolute rage people experience when they see this, or the absolute grief and sadness of the consistent headlines denoting crime, war, and climate change. Therefore, it becomes incredibly important now more than ever for people to not only learn to embrace their stress responses and see it through a more positive lens, but also do our best to help others who might be facing troubles in their lives as well. The truth is, due to economic, social, and environmental inequalities, millions of people around the world don't even have the option to strengthen their stress responses because they are stuck in cycles of toxic stress. For example, how can someone work on removing the processed foods out of their diet, or even removing themselves out of stressful situations when they are consistently stuck in those situations or don't have access to healthy food in the first place? So what can we do to help? Well, whether it be hosting a fresh food drive in the community, extending a listening ear to a friend or even a stranger, or just making sure that our behaviors aren't causing undue stress in the lives of others, if we can all work to uplift others when they are facing their downs in life and be able to rely on others when we are facing ours, I think that we can all collectively move towards a world in which everyone is able to live a life in which they and their loved ones feel safe, happy, and healthy. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Nguyen Vaishnav. I'm a junior in the Humanities Academy.
My name is Addison Denny. I'm a sophomore in the Humanities Academy.
Zach Furbush is a senior in the Humanities Academy at Forsyth Central High School. He's been fascinated by international affairs, specifically East Asian politics and economics, and for several years he's planned to major at the subject in University of North Georgia, where he will be a member of the Honors College. He plans to study abroad in China and complete an international internship in Taiwan while he's an undergraduate, and then hopefully pursue a master's degree at Georgetown or American University.
Zach has been a member of the Flash and Crimson Band and Flash and Crimson Drumline for the past 4 years. He has been section leader for the front ensemble for the past 2 years and also plays in the wind ensemble. He has been active in the Youth Assembly and Model UN Georgia United Nations Assembly since his freshman year and served as a member of the Youth City Council during his sophomore and junior years. We're very welcome to present Zachary Furbush.
Extra slide. Okay. First off, Gia kind of took what I was going to say. I was going to say that everybody who just spoke before me was absolutely incredible. But I'd also like to say thank you to all of my classmates in my grade and younger, but mostly to the ones in my grade. I know that a lot of us are going through a lot of stress. You know, we just heard a lot about stress, and it might be a little selfish, but could we all give a round of applause to some of my classmates? You know what's crazy for me to think about is that in about 3 months, I, along with my classmates and everybody who just spoke before me, will be moving off to bigger and better things. Bigger and better things which a lot of you have already experienced. We're going to be leaving behind a life which we've carefully constructed, surrounded by people that we've known since before the last time any of us seriously sang our ABCs. And while it's true that a lot has changed since kindergarten, none of those changes have really been as daunting or formidable as the ones we're about to face, those bigger and better things. And so the first thing I like to do when faced with big, unavoidable changes such as this is reflect back to things that have given me direction in the past, mistakes I've made that serve as valuable advice for future me to follow on how not to get lost. So I'd like to share with some of you, well, all of you, some of that advice. When I was in 6th grade, short, chubby old me, I know, I used to be this tall, had some problems. I didn't have a lot of friends because a lot of them had moved away. I was smart, but lacked some creativity, and I didn't have many distinguishable skills besides being occasionally funny. But worst of all, I had some pretty bad social anxiety. Whenever I tried to go up and talk to one of my teachers, I would tell myself first, no. You don't want to do that. Don't talk to them. You should have just been paying attention. And so, as I'd walk up there, I'd almost start crying. My anxiety was horrible. And the teacher would just sit there all smug as I said, Miss Gooch, could you repeat your instructions for me? I wasn't paying attention to a word you just said. I'm sure they all loved me. It was a day in the summer, going into 7th grade, when I made a big decision in my life. You see, I was watching The Try Guys, a group of 4 guys that BuzzFeed randomly put together to create some funny videos. And one of their videos was getting a professional makeover. Now, when I watched this video, I fell in love with how they looked after their transformation. It was beforehand, they all looked weird and yucky. And then afterwards, as they were walking down, they had this runway. They were walking down like this, so confident. And I wanted that confidence for myself. I was like, this is what I'm lacking. I need to dress nicer. So I get up from my chair and I walk to my mother's room. I opened the door and I declared, Mother, I am sick and tired of dressing horribly all day. All I wore was sweatpants and shirts. And my mother, who has been eagerly trying to get me to switch it up a little bit and not look like I just got out of bed, eagerly dropped all of the laundry that she was folding and drove me out to Old Navy, and I bought some new khakis, flannel shirts, some nice dress shoes, and for the next 2 years, that is what I wore to school. Anybody who knew me back then can attest that that was my entire wardrobe. Khakis and flannel shirts. But there was a big realization that I've recently had, was the impact that changing how I dressed had on my life. The following years, I was more easily able to communicate with my teachers. By the end of the year, I would almost argue I had a pretty good relationship with them. And this kind of confidence has definitely continued into high school. We are the masters of our own fate, said Winston Churchill to the United States Congress in 1941. To me, that means that my future is in my control. That I have the choice, that we all have the choice, to forge ahead and create a life that we're happy with by making the right decision, and then making another decision, and then making another decision, until eventually we come to that decision, that choice, to say, Mother, I want to dress nicer today. It's from that realization that a lot of your problems that you didn't really know that you had can be solved. Because you are all the masters of your fate. You all have the ability to make that one decision. This past semester has been probably one of the hardest of my life, with this current one about to overtake it by the time AP exams roll around. But there's a fundamental difference in the way that I started last semester and the way I started this semester. You see, when you add it all together, 5 AP classes, plus 1 girlfriend, plus 2 friend groups, plus marching band, which takes up so much time, definitely does not equal free time. Not at all. It got so bad to a point, firstly, any free time that I had was spent with other people because I was so afraid to disappoint them. I didn't want to say no. So I just kept agreeing and agreeing. And it got so bad to a point that by the time midterms rolled around, I had a virus, which turned into bronchitis for an extra 2 weeks. And then after that was doubled with another dose of COVID-19, which lasted a week. So that was my whole winter break sick. And I hated it. And I fully attribute it to the stress that destroyed my immune system. disappointing. Ah, yes, my favorite part. How could I forget? You see, long before I got sick, a couple months, I had to ask my 90-year-old grandfather, whom I love dearly, some advice on how to get a little more time for myself. This is him and I. Look how cute I was. Look how cute he is. And he told me in that overly frank, grandfatherly tone, you don't owe anybody anything. And, I mean, he instantly pinpointed the problem. I felt like I owed people everything. I felt I owed them myself. But at first I didn't get it. At first I argued against him and said, well, of course I can owe people something. If I make a commitment, then I have to keep that commitment, right? Come hell or high water. But, as I said, I missed the point. It's a mindset. It's all a mindset that tells you that it's okay to put your needs ahead of others sometimes. That you can take time for yourself, you can take time for your family. Everything is a choice. All of these commitments are a choice. That it's a mindset that tells me that I don't owe anybody an explanation unless I want to explain. And I don't owe anyone commitments that I don't wish to keep. And I will do it my way because I don't owe anyone anything. Two weeks ago, I attended my first funeral. This was my great uncle, George Ingram. You might recognize the last name if you're from around here, or you might recognize this logo. No, that's the wrong one. This logo. Now, I never really had a conversation with him. I didn't know the man, but when I went to the funeral and the visitation beforehand, I saw a lot of fear in my relatives' faces, people that I see as strong. And I mean, the most adult that you can really get are your relatives, your uncles that you only know from Thanksgiving parties. And I saw the fear that they had in their face that I never would have expected, and I didn't know how to react because I've never lost a loved one. So I was sitting at the procession in the church, and I was thinking about my own life and my own future, my own family, and wondering, how many people am I going to lose? I mean, I still have both sets of my grandparents. I have my brother, I have my parents, I have so many cousins, and I've never lost anybody. I mean, as I said, I'm 18 and this is my first funeral. So I started worrying and I got afraid of the future. A familiar fear, something I've felt a lot before and always kind of struggled with, the fear of the future and the fear of change. You know, I've never really been good with change. Ever since I was a little kid, anytime my parents would try to rearrange the living room, I would pitch a fit and I'd be like, no. You can't do that. You can't do that. It has to be the exact same. Or this one time they tried to paint the wall orange. It's still painted orange, but they had to fight so hard to get that. And they'd always tell me too. They'd be like, Zach, change is good. You gotta embrace change. That's how you keep life funky fresh. But I didn't get it like that. Like now, I get it. I like funky fresh. Back then, I was not cool. But as I grew older, some of those irrational fears of change grew into more legitimate ones. You know, fear of failing classes, fear of losing your friends or your friend group, the fear of commitment. But, to be honest, the only thing we have to fear is ourselves. When you think about it, what opportunities are you going to miss out on because you are too afraid to step out? What decisions are you going to miss out on because you are too afraid to decide? What obstacles are you going to let block your path because you don't know how to get around them and you choose not to get around them? Fear is natural. It's in our biology. So just getting over it probably isn't going to cut it most of the time. But that's why I think you have to push past it. You have to move forward and fight that biological urge to be afraid of the future, because in the end, you don't need to worry about any of that. You don't need to be afraid of any of that. The only thing you need to be afraid of is what you're not going to let yourself do. When I was in 7th grade, I had to audition for band placements the following year. The choices were between concert band in this lovely marching band red and the symphonic band in this lovely symphonic band blue. Now, the symphonic band is supposed to be the better band, so I wanted to be in it naturally. But I didn't. My audition went horribly, and I got placed in concert band. I was frustrated because, my brother, when he was in high school, was a percussionist, and he was in marching band for all 4 years. So I've been surrounded by the drumline community since I was in 4th grade. And so now, going into my 8th grade year, I wanted to prepare as much as I possibly could to be able to be like him when he was in high school. And so I didn't see the value of being in concert band. What I did see was blind, white-hot hatred from my band directors for putting me in this band even though they knew that I was good enough to be there. But I realized that having that anger and blaming them for my bad audition wasn't going to do me any good. In the end, the only thing that really matters is the action that you take to get yourself out of that mess. So, for the next semester and a half, I practiced religiously. I came in the mornings. I stayed in the afternoons. I even somehow came in during the middle of the day. Middle school is a lot more strict than high school with that. I got a private lessons person, and I took private lessons 2 to 3 times a week, and eventually it paid off. As we were nearing our final concert, the band directors were like, "Hey, Zach, you see, we don't have enough percussionists. You could play this tambourine part for this song. You think you could do it?" I was like, "Woo, buddy, this is what I've been looking for this whole time." So I took it, and I didn't anticipate how stressful it'd be. Having to go to both band rehearsals, having to go to both concerts, having to learn both parts, which was way more difficult than it should have been. And it was very stressful, and I loved every second of it, because I fought for it. I worked for it. And continuing on into high school, all of that hard work continued to pay off. And in band, I was given a lot of good things that were instantly taken away from me by factors that were completely outside of my control. And I was devastated, because all of my hard work seemed to have gone to waste, but it didn't. Because eventually, I had the choice of moving forward, keep going, and fight for the next thing, or giving up. I did not give up, and I kept going, because I knew that if I set goals for myself, goals that might seem unrealistic, that with just sheer will, I can reach that. And so standing here today, in this current moment, I've achieved all the goals that I set out to by my freshman year. I'm continuing to make goals for myself because I understand the value of making goals. It gives you a direction. I continue making goals, and I continue having a path to get to them. But to get to this point, I had to make a lot of those realizations that I've just told you. The realization that I'm in control of my own future. The realization that I don't owe anybody anything, and I need to take it and do with it what I want, not what other people want for me. With that realization that as we move forward, life is more like a revolving door. It's like a revolving door that as you walk through it, you see the other guy pass through, and that guy might be high school, that guy might be college or a friend, and you can always look back through those doors and say, "Hey guy, hey friend, I remember you. Uh-oh. Oh, that's not good." Well, I'll leave it like that. And you can always look back but you can't stop moving because then you'll get hit by the door. And so, that's the way you should look at life. As constantly moving, constantly changing, and if you sit around and let yourself be afraid, you're wasting your time. If you go around and doing what other people want you to do, you're wasting your time. Because ultimately, we are all the masters of our fate. We don't owe anybody anything because we are the captains of our soul. Thank you.
This video, a few classmates and I put together, and it's just showcasing what we do in CFA. We're the people who film all the stuff around school for the prom fashion show. We're even live streaming right now. So we're just showing you guys what we get to do here in CFA. So thank you and enjoy.
My name is Alexander Hanlen. I'm currently in my first year of the CFA pathway. In AV1, we are currently learning how to do Foley. We're using different materials, surfaces, and objects to create sounds to replace the ones that are already existing on screen. Say, if there is thunder in your shot, but your mic couldn't properly catch the thunder, you'd use maybe a large sheet of metal to create that sound of thunder, record it, and then edit it onto the shot later. I am most excited for being able to work on a feature-length film, such as Hiding in Plain Sight, which is currently being produced by AV3 and AV4. To go from start to end, to go through the whole process with the group, and to be able to sit down in a chair, look at the big screen, and watch a movie and go, I took part in creating that, is something that I very much still look forward to.
I'm Nikki Melendez. I'm Charlotte Messer. And we are year 2 CFA. Probably shooting The Long Drive, which was like a script that we got from Hanlen, where we had to figure out like where we were gonna film it, like how we were gonna do it, and then we had to cast everybody. So, okay, who's gonna be the actor? Who's going to direct? And then we had to figure out like the dates and all. So Hanlen was the producer, but he wasn't like directly involved with it. It was oh, we're gonna go film at my house and we're gonna film with my old truck that it doesn't even run anymore. So we had to like figure all of that out without Hanlen like guiding us. And it was a challenge for sure, because it was like the first thing that we ever did without him being there. But it was really great. We had a lot of fun doing it. There were some stressful times, but it's kind of like good stress. It was definitely the good stress. I directed it and Charlotte here was on-screen talent. And I never thought I would ever want to direct like that or have creative control like that. I was much more of an audio person in my freshman year, but taking that challenge and just taking that risk to direct the first time, I'm so happy I did it, because having that creative control and being able to make sure that everyone was doing their job to the fullest and making a movie that like at the end of, I was so proud of, and like I was so proud of my cast and my crew, and being able to say, I made that, I directed that, and everyone who did it was doing what I told them, and we made such a beautiful thing. And I'm so proud of everyone who did it, because everyone was so talented. We took everything we learned from freshman year and we completely applied it to that film. And it was such a great experience. The AV pathway, my favorite thing about it, probably the people. I did not expect to make such a close friend group here, and I did. Being in a cohort and going along with the same group of people all 4 years was a little nerve-wracking for me, but I love it. I've met some of my
good friends here. We are all really into the same things, but we're all so different. Some of us are into theater, some of us are into music, and we all collectively are into movies and we want to make them. So when you combine all these great people from different paths of life and you get us behind a camera or behind a computer and you tell us, make something, you're gonna get amazing things being made. And we just have such a good time in all of the classes.
And one thing is we all had to learn how to work together. That's something that's really important when you all are working on one specific project. Everybody is like, they all have their own specific role. So if one person doesn't pull their weight, it's not gonna work right. So we all had to learn to work together and have like one vision for this, because it can't be one person who micromanages everything and thinks that they're in charge, unless you're a director, because then that is your job. But like, we all had to learn how to get along and work together, and through that we all became super close, and we're like a little mini family now.
I mean, a little mini family, little mini CFA family.
Hi, my name's Kristen Jones.
And my name's Maddie Mabry.
And we're in AV3.
So my favorite project so far has probably been Infatuation. It was a film that I directed my sophomore year, and it was really fun because we got to play with different lighting setups with these cool LEDs that we have. They're called Kinos, and they're really, really big lights that you can make any color you want with it. So we chose to go for like a red kind of tone, and it was really, really fun to play with. And it was also fun because it was more interpretive than the rest of our films, because our films are usually follow a general storyline, but this one we went just a little more fun, a little more interpretive. And the most fun part to me was probably just because we got to submit it to a film festival, and that's the first film festival I've ever submitted it to. So it went to Bobcat in Milledgeville, and even though it was online, it was just a great experience because they put all of the films together in a clip. And then they went through and they judged all of them, and then we ended up getting best editing and fan favorite. So it was really fun. Yeah.
And my favorite project that we've probably done is also from sophomore year. It's called Felt a Funeral in My Brain, and it's based off an Emily Dickinson poem. And I was the actor for that, and it was really cool to experience being in front of the camera and directing in front of the camera, like receiving direction. Because I'm usually behind the scenes, because that's what the Institute focuses on everything behind the scenes. But it was really cool to get that perspective of being an actor. And we do have an acting for film class as well that is paired with the class for sophomore year. So it was really cool to act for that. I had a good time. So in CFA, at least in AV1, you get to learn every position in the industry almost. You get to learn things from editing to sound to art department to lighting. And you get a feel of how each department interacts with each other and how it's gonna be on an actual set when you get to the big times. But it's also really cool because you get to find a home in a department. So some people are really good at lighting, and that's what they tend to stick to throughout like AV2 and AV3. Same thing goes for sound. For me personally, it's directing or acting. I like to do something with that because I feel like it's what I'm best at, and it gives you a really good gauge on where you think you're gonna go in the industry. So I'll probably do something with like directing or acting when I get to the big times.
Yeah, CFA is also really, really helpful when it comes to applying to jobs in the industry because you make your portfolio, you have a website, and you also have a resume that's directed specifically towards film. And with every class that we have AV1, AV2, AV3, and then senior year, we have a mentorship. And with every one of those classes, there's a different elective. So for freshman year, we had visual arts, which basically teaches you the elements and principles of design and storyboards and all of that fun stuff. Sophomore year, we had acting for film, which especially for people like me who do theater is really helpful because it teaches you the difference between stage acting and film acting, and how film acting is specifically more minute details in your facial expressions. So that's really, really helpful. And then AV3, we have tech theater, which we are building flats, learning set design, all that fun stuff. And then next year, when we have our mentorship with Mr. Hanlen, we'll have dramatic writing with Mrs. Stern, which is basically just the basics of script writing.
That's a wrap.
My name is Dan Grass. I'm the coordinator for the Central Film Academy, and I'm here to announce second place. And second place goes to Jack Vermouth.
Before I announce the first place winner, I will tell you what this person will be winning. He or she will be winning a $500 Visa gift card. In addition to that, Oglethorpe University, so Oglethorpe has donated this $500 Visa gift card, but they've also said that if this student decides to go to Oglethorpe, they will award the student a $2,000 scholarship for the first year, which has students at Oglethorpe, and $1,000 for each subsequent year for a total of $5,000. So it's a pretty the first of many more focus symposiums. So thank you.